Hey everybody, it's Ron with Ron's Computer Videos with special guest tonight, Tilda Swinton's hair. Seriously though, I wanted to take a couple minutes and talk to you about one of my favorite things. Actually, maybe not one of my favorite things, one of my least favorite things. Apple's 500 series PowerBooks. I mean, if you find a good one, they're not terrible, but they're not especially great either. This one right here was sent in by my friend Frodo Jedi for a little bit of a workover. I thought maybe I would take a few minutes this evening and just kind of talk about what I did to get this back up and running, and maybe see if I can inspire you to restore your 500 series PowerBook. This one's special. It's got one of those stickers I made up to show that you can upgrade these babies to PowerPC. And this one is kind of special. This is a 540C. This is the top end, basically, for what Apple offered in the US. There is a 550 model, 550C, that was available exclusively in Japan. Has a slightly different keyboard layout, and then I think maybe it's ever so slightly faster than the 540C. But no! This is the model. This is the big boy. This is the one that the CEO of your company probably carried with them back in the day. It's not a terrible machine. It's a 33 megahertz 68040. Like I was saying, these can be PowerPC upgraded. Frodo Jedi actually sourced the 603. It's like 117 megahertz, something like that. Upgrade module. That's really good. It really does breathe a little bit of life into it. It doesn't make it a ton faster. I think it ends up at the end of the day maybe being 20% faster than like a 6166 or something like that. But it's not bad, and it's a lot of power to carry with you out in the field. Another thing that's really nice is it has a full complement of ports on the back, including, let me see, can I do this in reverse? You could have a modem if you wanted to. It's got SCSI connectivity, video, Ethernet. That's an important one. It also has a ADB port for hooking up external keyboards and mice, sound input and output, and a serial port. So it's a lot of horsepower to carry with you on the road. But again, what I wanted to kind of talk about are like some of the things to be looking out for on these models. And so maybe let's just go over to the bench and we'll take a look. Maybe one of the first things to think about on these models is the power supply. And this is kind of unique compared to Apple's earlier machines in that this actually integrates two 16-volt power supplies. One was designed to strictly just power up the unit and keep it running on AC power, and then the other one is strictly for charging the battery. Now, what does that mean? Well, because the machine is a 68040, it's got some higher power requirements than the 030 machines on the older series. So the idea was that you could actually power the system and then top off the system with the battery if you had additional sort of computing power needs or whatever. That might not be a super accurate way of saying it, but the machine could actually tap both sides of the system, both the charging circuit and the regular power circuit, if it had the need to do so. The problem is this: these little boxes are super fragile, and the power supplies inside desperately need to be recapped. So if you are looking into a 500 series machine, you might actually source something like this. This is actually made by Javier. You can pick it up, I think, over on 8bitstuff.com. This will not charge the battery, but more about that in a second. There are a couple of different options. This one right here, this basically you plug it in. It's USB-C basically, you just you get a modern USB-C power supply that can supply up to 16 volts at the proper amperage, and he's got information on his website. There is another gentleman that's making these right now, and that's Francois, or Mumu Man in France. He should have his design on the market very shortly. Unfortunately, I didn't have one in time for the making of the video, but I'm very much looking forward to evaluating it. So about those batteries, they're all bad. None of these are good. They're all bad. You might have one. You might be like I've got one. and it'll hold a 30-second charge. That's great. That's great. I would rather not burn down my house trying to charge one of these guys. So your best bet is to just go without the battery. Now, that does not mean throw the batteries away. You want to dispose of these properly based on your local ordinance, and you may wish to consider salvaging the battery cover off the end. That can sometimes be accomplished without breaking the rest of it. This is very, very fragile plastic, and that's kind of the big thing with all these 500 series PowerBooks. But what you can do is you can actually sort of just rock it back and forth, and a lot of times they will just pop straight off. And then what you can do is use that to cover the battery bays in the machine, but not actually have one of these batteries in circuit trying to charge long after these things will no longer accept a charge. Let's talk plastics. Just like every other PowerBook that Apple ever produced, maybe with the exception of some of like the late Intel kind of stuff, the later things, they might have been PowerPC yet, but the plastics on this are very, very fragile, and especially around the hinges on the back that actually connect to the LCD. Something that you'll notice on those if you check it out is that unlike some of the earlier PowerBooks that actually had like a brass little receiver that was embedded in the plastic, the 500 series does not. You're just screwing directly into plastic. So if you are taking the back off of your PowerBook 500 series, make sure you go super ginger on these, because if you don't, you will strip that out, and then you will have to 3D print a replacement hinge, which if you don't have facilities to do that, you're just causing yourself more work. So please, 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 just go easy on the plastic. Now, on the back of the machine, something that's often missing is this rear door. You can remove these. They don't pop off super easy, I'll tell you that. You can kind of adjust them a little bit. There is there's a plastic hinge that kind of like clicks into place to hold everything from opening up. If these tabs break off on either end, the door is just gonna flappy open for the rest of time. So if you're evaluating a machine, make sure you've got the little plastic tabs in place. Always just be gentle when you're opening and closing the back. And if you have one of these but want to replace it on another machine, what you can do, start on this side. This side seems a little bit more robust. And what you want to do is basically you're just going to put, with this up off of your table, you're going to try to make a little bit of a V here in the middle and extract this edge, little nub that is connected over here. And then it should just lever out. Your mileage is going to vary on it because the plastics on these things are so old, but I would say that the doors, or the port covers, do appear to be made out of a slightly more, sort of flexible plastic. So, I mean, its whole job is to kind of take a little bit of abuse. So, just be careful and you should be okay. This keyboard right here looks pretty good. I'm gonna tell you right now that, you can find some zombie keyboards out there that it's going to be pretty obvious. But if you have a keyboard style that you like better, there are European and Japanese style keyboards for this series. Pick the one you want. This is just such a kind of a superficial thing. But if you are trying to do a restoration, you might want to try to find one of these. Now, what can you do if you have a zombified keyboard? I'm not 100% sure. You could try doing some UV exposure to see if you can bring it back. I haven't really experimented with that. That's something I'm actually going to try here in the next few weeks. But there are a ton of these. Apple made these in the millions. You can probably source a nice keyboard. To remove the keyboard, there's actually 2 screws that are actually kind of located here and here on the bottom of the laptop. And at that point, the keyboard kind of levers up, and you can just kind of pull it back out of the way. There are 2 plastic guides back here that you'll have to lift, that you can remove these. I'm just going to leave them in for the moment. The floppy drive sits here. Don't forget that oftentimes this can need a little bit of servicing, if nothing else, just to clean. the where it connects is there is a ribbon connection down here that terminates in a square sort of like Molex style connection. You can just use a spudger to kind of pop up on the edge of that little PCB, and the whole thing will come up out of there. There are 3 screws, 1, 2, 3, that need to be removed, and then there is a fake screw, or just basically a guide over here, and the whole thing, you can just put a spudger underneath the receivers for the screws, and the whole thing will kind of lift in the back and then slide out. Now this one here is missing the CPU cover, but that looks like this. It's basically just a little block of aluminum that sits here on a heat, or it's a heat spreader that sits underneath it. It mounts in the machine like this. So there's only one way it can go, because there is a tab here at the top that has a screw that it screws into, or a receiver that it screws into down here. The way that the PowerBook 500 series is designed is this CPU module is removable, and it has a riser here that will allow you to add a RAM upgrade. So this one right here, this is like an 8 meg RAM upgrade, and it basically just pops down in there. So now, if you have a machine and you are like, why is my machine? Why can't I screw these screws in? It's because Apple did a bonehead thing. Once you get the RAM installed, Apple actually it looks kind of like a little bridge that goes over the top of here, that are 2 pieces of plastic that wedge underneath this tab on either side. And what that does is then it has a screw boss in it that these screws go into. So if you're missing this little piece of plastic, you pop your thing apart and you're like, hey, why is this all flopping around? It's because you're probably missing this little piece of plastic. I do not know if those have been 3D modeled or anything, but that might be a good project for Ron one day. And of course, the last thing you have here is a SCSI hard drive. I'm not kidding. This thing is huge, and it probably constitutes a quarter of the weight of this darn thing. So these days, this is only like 320 meg. I think that's the standard size on a lot of these. The machine, really would benefit by using something like a Blue SCSI in here. I know you can head over to bluescsi.com and see all the vendors depending on where you live, or jcm-1.com, and pick up a Blue SCSI. Honestly, you can remove this carrier right here. Just make sure to take note of the orientation of where the pins are. Remember, this is oriented upside down, so your Blue SCSI is going to be upside down. And I'm pretty sure that the bias for where the data pins are, like the Blue SCSI is not going to have all of the, like on this end of the connector, there's a bunch of extra pins that determine, basically the SCSI ID and things like that. And so you're not going to plug into those, but you're going to plug into everything. So the bias on the cable is going to be on this end. Plug it into your Blue SCSI. You could take a piece of non-conductive foam, something like if you've ever ordered a package from JLC PCB or something, they send you like sheets and sheets of this stuff. You can, a big enough thing to cover up a Blue SCSI, you could wrap that around that and secure it in place, and you'd probably be good to go. One last thing that you probably will need to have is, if you have a 500 series and you're having problems with like, hey, I've got one of these brand new aftermarket power adapters, the machine still will not reliably power on, and you know for a fact that your USB-C power adapter is good. The next thing you might need is actually one of these PRAM batteries. And I found this company called RoamTech. This is not a endorsement. I am just saying that this is a place where I found one in stock. I know that I think that there are some ThinkPads that use a very, very similar style battery. But for the record, this one right here is the one that I was able to purchase. It doesn't appear to have a part number or anything on it. Actually, right there. You can pause your video. But yeah, this I put this in, the one that I restored for Frank, and yeah, it's able to keep all the settings and stuff. So very pleased with that. Now, the only problem is to get to the battery, you actually have to take off this top plastic bit, and the way you do that is pretty complicated. There are 3 screws along the side over here that hold a piece of trim on. You'll have to remove those and then slide the trim out. It'll be the exact same situation on this side. However, there is also hidden inside another screw down here. So you take that trim off, you take that trim off, and then at that point, if you already have the screen and everything removed, so that way that you can work carefully, basically there's one small screw, one larger screw, another larger screw, and another small screw here in the front on the bottom that you remove those, and then the whole top will pop off. Now, when you remove it, you have to be absolutely certain, you have to be careful, because there is an interconnect cable inside that attaches the, whatever the heck you call this, the touchpad. And so if you start pulling up on it too fast, you can rip this cable. It's very thin right here. This is the part of the cable that actually kind of sits down here that actuates the buttons and things like that. So you want to make sure that you are very, very careful disassembling this. I mean, there are millions of these, but why rip it and why break it if you don't have to? But once you get the top plastic off, mounted right underneath here, there is a, or actually it might be reversed depending on if it's upside down, but you'll see it right away. Basically, there's just a little round plastic cover. You pop it off, you put the new battery in, you route it around. It plugs into the cable for the, see right there? That's where the PRAM battery plugs in. It's kind of just part of this whole little assembly that sits underneath. Oops, let me orient it the correct way. Okay, so the connector's on this side, so it would actually be over here. But when you flip it over and you're looking at it upside down, you'd forgive me for having it backwards, but yeah, that's what the cable kind of looks like there. And that's where it anchors actually to the motherboard. Speaking of the motherboard, here's the motherboard for the 500 series. This is kind of the same idea as what they did with the 100 series PowerBooks, where you have kind of a generic motherboard that serves in a bunch of different models, and then you just actually added the processor, or you added the RAM or whatever accessories and stuff you wanted. Now, I will show you this because the design on this is pretty great. The entire board makes use of tantalum capacitors, so there's not like there's anything that's really leaking and ready to cause you grief, except for 2 traditional caps that are just kind of down here, and they're very easy to remove if you have a MOO gun. If you don't, there are some very small components around where you're going to be desoldering. You want to make sure that you just are extremely careful with that. So what do those service? My understanding, just talking with Tech Night, is this is the DC to DC charging circuit and stuff, and if these capacitors leak, which oftentimes they do, depending on the model and where they were made and a bunch of other factors, if you replace these, you should have joy when trying to power it on with a known good working power supply. But it is kind of a pain in the butt to get to this point. You may not need to replace them. This might be a whole lot of extra work and a wild goose chase, but you'll have to evaluate your machine and decide what needs to be done. Just in case, I went ahead and I ordered some from Mouser. You can see what the value of the caps are right there, and then there's also probably a part number, but you will need 2 of them. But it's like anything else. If you're going to pay $7 to have caps delivered to your house, order 4 just in case you have a problem. I'll be dipped if the 540C ain't a pretty little machine. On the Active Matrix models, the display itself uses tantalum capacitors. All of the passive matrix displays, or dual scan displays, I guess, have capacitors all down the side of the LCD itself. Both models, the LCD backlight board, they do have, I think, 2 or 3 small capacitors on them, but I have never seen them leak. I am sure that TechNight has been alerted to me saying that, and probably will disagree, but thankfully on this one, I've ran it for several hours and have not been able to detect any leakage, so we're leaving it as it is for right now. Nice. And as you can see here, 116 megahertz 603E with that upgrade card, pretty nice. Especially, you know, you can compare it to different things here on the list in MacBench, but I think 6160 is kind of the default machine that it shows you on version 4. And after a brief benchmark, you can see that we're maybe only 17% faster just in the CPU test versus a 6160, but keep in mind, this is a 603, and it is, you know, kind of shoehorned into a 68040 machine. One last thing to be aware of, the microphone cover on a lot of these machines, especially after you've done repairs, like to pop off and stuff. Sometimes you can break the little tabs that anchor it in place. This is what I do for my own sanity. Anytime you're going to close the display on this, make sure that you give a little helping hand to the microphone cover to stay in place, just in case it does try to move. What I'll do is put 2 thumbs, make sure that everything is popped in place. It likes to pop out like you just saw right there, okay? You can move it just a little bit, give it a little bit of helping hand, and then what you can do is slowly close it the rest of the way. Nice. I want to thank Frank for giving me an opportunity to kind of work on his PowerBook 540. This was a fun project to get this all restored, so hopefully maybe you watched the video and were entertained a little bit. Might even give one of these projects a shot of your own. So just remember, anytime you're messing with these old ones, they do like to have little goopy plastic and things like that. You can always just you know, rub that stuff out. You can dig it out with a spudger and clean it with alcohol, and then you should be okay. This is kind of from the era where it's got all the degrading plastics, so just restore it and try to love it as much as you can for as long as you can. But that's really it. So thanks very much for everybody spending a few moments of your evening here with me. And as I always say, Apple II forever.